Right, so the next thing you're going to be doing in this project is you're going to be making this here. Now, this is the cone, and as you would have found out from your research, the cone is the part that makes your sound of a passive amplifier louder. Okay, so for this, what you're going to need is you're going to need the jig, which will be on the table. There's two parts to the jig, the base piece here and this section here. You're going to need a circle of hips. Okay, I've got a green circle here, and there are other colours available that you can use if you want to. You're going to need some oven gloves to stop the heat of the oven and the heat of the plastic once we put it in there. Once you put it into the oven, you're going to need those to stop yourself getting burnt. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the oven and we're going to be using the jig. Now, HIPS stands for high impact polystyrene, okay, and this is a thermoplastic. Now, you might have heard the word thermo used before in other things like thermometer, thermostat, thermoimaging, all sorts of things like that. So it's all to do with heat. Okay, so a thermoplastic can be molded. When you heat it up, the molecules become hot and start moving around, and the plastic becomes flexible, and then we can heat it up and mold it into shape. Now, the good thing about this, the thermoplastic, is once you've molded it, if we heat it again, it has a bit of a memory. So it remembers its original shape, and it can go back to its original shape, and then we can mold it again. So if you don't quite get this correct the first time, perhaps you haven't heated it up enough, or perhaps it doesn't go to the shape you wanted, you can pop it back in the oven as long as it's not stretched too far, and you can reheat it and remold it. So I'm going to be showing you now how we use the oven and a bit of HIPS to make our cone. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to sterilise your hands. Okay, so we wouldn't normally be doing this, but obviously with COVID, we need to make sure our hands are nice and clean. We're going to be putting them into gloves that other people use. Okay, so sterilise your hands and make sure they're nice and clean using one of the sterilising pumps here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of HIPS, like so, and we're going to put the oven gloves on, okay, because when you'll be using it after somebody else has used it, so everything will be quite hot. All right, so we're going to put these gloves on, and what you're going to do is you're going to take this part of the jig, and notice it's got these butterfly clips at the top and it's got these bolts underneath, and we need to remember that to help us actually when we put it back together. So this can be a little bit tricky. These bolts have been in the oven, so they will be hot. So we're going to undo these with gloves on, quite a tricky task. Undo all four of them, and we're going to take this top section off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place the ring. I see this ring here. We're going to place the plastic directly in that position. So I've taken my four things off, very carefully slide off the top, and hopefully you can see there on the camera this circle. Okay, so this circle is where we want to place our ring. Now, we've got a bit of a decision to make here. We've got a shiny side of the HIPS, and we've got a dull side. Okay, so do you want it to be shiny on the outside like this cone is, or do you want it to be shiny on the inside? If you want it to be shiny on the outside, then you place your shiny bit face up. Okay, so the shiny side of the plastic face up, and notice I put it right in the center, right on that ring there. Then what I'm going to do is place the top back on. Okay, now once you place the top back on, we then need to put back on these butterfly clips. I'm just taking my glove off, just to make it a little bit easier. Obviously these will be warm, so please don't do that. So push it down and just tighten up as much as you can. Hand tight is fine, okay, but they do need to be quite tight to stop the plastic from moving. So I'm just tightening all four of these bolts up. As I said, you'll be able to do this with gloves on because I haven't put this in the oven yet, so these bolts and these butterfly nuts are not hot, but they will be once they've been in the oven. Okay, so twist these up. This one's been a little bit difficult to go on. Okay, I'm trying that one on this one, see if they have a bit more luck. There you go. So place it on there and tighten them up as tight as you can get them. I'm also pushing down on the wood here to make sure that they can be tightened up as much as they possibly can. So as I said, hand tight is fine, push them down, and that will then trap this piece of plastic inside the wood, and it won't move. Right, so the next stage is heating up your plastic. So what I want you to do, I want you to take the mould that we've just put the plastic in, and then we're going to place it into our oven. Now, the oven, I don't think you can probably see, but I've heated the oven up to around 200 degrees. Okay, so 200 degrees Celsius, and at about 200 degrees, you need to put this in the oven for about just over a minute. Okay, so 60 seconds, and then the plastic will become flexible enough so then we can push it over the mould. Now, the longer you leave the door open, the more the oven cools down. So if this drops to 175 degrees or 160 degrees, it's going to need to be in there for longer. So when students always ask, how long does it need to be in there, sir? It sort of depends. Okay, so it depends on the higher the temperature, the less time it needs to be in the oven for. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is not forget about it. You're going to need to put it in, about 60 seconds, and then take it out. And then just give it a little bit of a poke and see if it's flexible enough. If it is flexible enough, the plastic will sort of become, you'll see it's very flexible. You should be able to push your finger down, obviously with the glove on, and see that it's nice and flexible. Okay, so I'm going to place this in the oven. Obviously the oven is hot. I need to be careful when I'm placing it in the oven. Okay, and then you'll see already the temperature has gone down from 200, it's dropping down slowly, 198, 197. So even just having the oven door open for that short period of time, drop that temperature down. So you need to be quite quick, open the oven, put your thing in. Obviously we're wearing gloves to make sure that we don't touch any of the oven or anything burns us and things like that, because the oven is very hot. Okay, this is why these gloves, they are heat resistant and protect our hands. Okay, so I put it in there. I'm going to be counting up to about 60 seconds in my head. If you want to use your phones or the clock in the corner, you can see when it clicks to the next minute, then that's absolutely fine. I've also on the table here got the rest of my mould sorted out, so I'm ready to go with actually pushing it down here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to speed up the rest of this video and show you when we actually take the actual plastic out of the oven, what it looks like when it's ready to be moulded. Right, so my plastic's been in the oven now for just over a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my plastic, and you can see it's very flexible. It's actually staying down, so it's a little bit too long in the oven. Okay, so what I'm going to do now with my gloves on is take it in on here and push it down over my mould. Okay, my gloves on like that. I'm pushing it down, and you can see then what it does is takes the shape of the cone by pushing it over the actual shape that's in our mould. So I've lined the mould up, so my handles are on the side here, and I'm keeping it flat. And what you want to do is you want to keep it held down for about a minute, just to allow the plastic to cool, and then you'll feel it stop wanting to spring back up. The plastic has a bit of an elastic property to it, so it wants to go back to its original shape, as I told you. So you're going to have to hold it there until the plastic cools. Now obviously everything that's been in the oven is very, very hot. Okay, now I left it in slightly too long there, and I can tell that because I've got some sort of little, you can see it's gone quite transparent there, quite thin, and I've got some little sort of bubbles in there. So I should have taken it out a little bit earlier. I went just over a minute. So a little bit less time would have been preferable. And then what you can do, again using your gloves, is undo these wing nuts. Okay, tricky with your gloves on, I know. Obviously these will be hot, they've just been in an oven. And then you will then allow you to get your cone out, and this mould be ready for the next person. Okay, so really the trick is making sure that you get your timings correctly of the plastic when it's in the mould. So there's 3, and the last one coming off there, and then your cone, put it up slowly, your cone should look a little bit alike this. I'm just struggling with my gloves to show you there. Okay, so that's how you mould your cone using the plastic oven and a piece of high impact polystyrene. All right.